Good afternoon and welcome to Brewing. I'm your host. My name's Scott Leffler. It's election day. Yay, election day. I got up early this morning and voted. I had it at like 9 o'clock this morning, which, oh, look, Bills shirt. Buffalo Bills. Sorry. Is it hockey season yet? Can we have hockey season this year, please? I got up really early today, and I have no idea why. But I woke up at like 9 o'clock, and I think that, honestly, I think that it's because it's election day. It's like it's the Super Bowl. It's Christmas. Yay, Christmas! As we all know, I like Christmas. As mentioned in my column that's in today's paper, I like Christmas a lot. And I'm excited about Christmas, but like this is my Christmas to an extent. Election day is a big deal to me. Always has been. I voted in every election that I could. I can't vote in the primary election usually because I'm a registered member of the Libertarian Party. We're not allowed to vote. It's not so much that we're not allowed to vote, but it's that there are no primaries for the Libertarians because they're lucky enough to get one candidate, much less two. But I voted in every election since I was 18. First time I ever voted, I was in Ohio. And actually, when I got to Ohio, I was still 17. But I was going to be 18 before the election, so I registered to vote right away, and I voted every year since. And I vote for school boards and budgets, and I vote for town council races and mayoral races and all that fun stuff. It occurred to me today as I was on my way to my polling place. Now, I voted at church this year, but this is the fourth different polling place that I've had in the last 5 years. I voted at a school in Lockport last presidential election. The following year, I voted in West Seneca. The year after that, I voted in Tonawanda. 2 years in a row, I voted in Tonawanda, and now I'm back in Lockport voting at a church. Now, I walked in to vote today, and it's jam-packed, full of peeps waiting to vote, and I thought that was awesome. And yet, at the same time, I was a little concerned about the situation because I'm not entirely sure that they had it all together, that they knew what was going on. It seemed to me as though the poll workers may have been a skosh overwhelmed. And look, I live in suburbia, right? I live in the middle of, well, not the middle of nowhere, but it is definitely suburbia. I live in Lockport, New York. It really made me wonder, like, what happens in the inner city if and it wasn't overwhelming chaos, but I got the feeling that there was some chaos going on there. So I get there and I get in line, and now I know what ward and district I'm in because I'm informed. Most people don't. I think that most people they know where they're supposed to go vote. And I have my card, my election card, says that I vote at the school, but the Board of Elections website said that I vote at this church. So I went to the church, which is good because no one was voting at the school. So I don't know what the discrepancy was there. They must have changed the polling place between when I registered to vote and now. Now I registered to vote like the day I moved into my apartment. I changed my registration to here because to me it's a big deal. Voting is life. I'm an American, happy to vote, proud to vote. I'll vote every chance I get. But I walk into this church, and there's a little bit of chaos going on, and I know what ward and what district I'm in, so I go to the right table, and they ask me for my name, and I give them my name, and of course they always have trouble finding it in the book. I don't understand why, but they always have trouble finding it in the book, and I almost always have to point it out to them. It's right there. So I point out my name in the book, and she hands me the thing so I can sign it, and she gives me a card, and she goes, "All right, go down there, and then when you're done, make sure to put your vote in this machine because there's like one machine here, and then there's one machine here, here, and then there's another one over here, like across from each other." And so the one was the machine for the 5th Ward District 4, and the other is a machine for the 5th Ward District 3, I think. But it was another district. I have a feeling there's going to be some ballot contamination. I don't know, bad feeling about there. And like I said, I live in Lockport, New York. It's pretty small here. I can only imagine the level of chaos that there is in New York City, where yesterday the governor signed an executive order that says if you live in one of the areas affected by Sandy, you can vote anywhere. That's going to be some chaos. Chris Christie, governor of New Jersey, said he took it further, and then he goes, "Dude, vote by email." What I I didn't think that there was going to be too many questions, comments, or concerns about this year's election, but given those two acts, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of lawyering going on, although I don't necessarily think that it's going to matter. My take on this election, we've gone over polling numbers from Nate Silver on an almost daily basis. I haven't even looked to see what the latest poll numbers are. Here, let's check those out right now. 538.blogs.newyorktimes.com. Obama's up even further. The forecast is that the president will get 313 electoral votes compared to Mitt Romney's 225. Barack Obama has a 90.9% chance of winning the election, and it looks as though he is expected to get 50.8% of the popular vote. And, well, here's one of the reasons why. They just flipped Florida from a light shade of red to a light shade of blue. That's kind of interesting. Virginia, which was a light shade of blue, is now a slightly darker shade of blue, and Ohio is a very dark shade of blue. So Ohio is looking like it's no longer really a swing state. They're calling it an Obama state. Now, of course, as I mentioned yesterday, the only poll that matters is the one that's done, the one that's being done today, because all of the questions that they ask people via phone or via the internet, however they do their polling, all of those questions prior to today are moot, because if you say I'm going to vote for Obama, but then you go vote for Romney, that poll didn't do anybody any good, or didn't hurt anybody for that matter. So that's kind of interesting. Now, personally, here's what I see. A lot of people are saying that Obama will break 300 electoral votes. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think he's going to win. And he's going to have the 290 range. Now you need 270 to win. 269 is a tie. So you need 270 to win. I think he's going to get that somewhat handily. I think he's going to probably end up in the 290 range. I don't see him winning Virginia. I just don't, and I don't see him winning Florida either. But I do see him winning Ohio, and Iowa, and Colorado, and Nevada. Nevada seems to be bluer this year than in previous years. So we'll see. I'm thinking the 290 range. A colleague of mine said yesterday that he thinks that we're not going to have a president for a couple weeks, kind of like we had in the year 2000. I doubt that's going to happen. I think I go to bed tonight knowing that Barack Obama has been reelected. I think that when I put the newspaper out tonight, it says 4 more years as a headline, or Obama again, or I think the headline is going to state who the president is going to be. Unlike 12 years ago, and I was working that night, and we put the paper to bed, and I don't remember what the headline was, but it was something to the effect of, who knows. I don't see that happening this year, but again, it doesn't. We'll find out later. Election day is always fun at the newspaper. We get pizza, and it's like the one day of the year that the newsroom matters to the rest of the paper. You would think in the media industry that the news publishers, the news gatherers, the news people would be integral to the industry. We're not really. It's pretty much the advertisers are the important ones, and then circulation, then us, I think. But advertisers are always way up here, and we're here. But on election night, for some reason or another, suddenly we matter, and we feel alive, and we have fun. Election night pizza. We've done election night pizza in every newsroom that I've ever worked in, whether it was in radio or newspaper. And I used to anchor the coverage on WLVL. That was fun. That was always fun. And a couple of friends of mine, Bob Confer is a columnist for the newspaper that I work for, and Tom Christie, who used to do he used to host a show on television. Some controversy there. If you're local, Google the name Tom Christie. Well, if you're not local, Google the name Tom Christie. Friend of mine, good guy. But every election night, the three of us would sit down and talk about election results, local elections. Now, for me, there's only 3 elections for me. Well, some rules. Scott Loeffler's rules for voting. I never vote in an uncontested race. This year, the sheriff's race was uncontested. Sheriff Jim Vautour, good guy. I've known him for years, since well before he was sheriff. I like him. He's a good person. But he had the Democrat and the Republican and the liberal and the conservative and the whatever, all the lines. He had all the lines. He had no contest whatsoever. I will not vote in an uncontested race. I don't care if Gandhi was running for dog catcher. If he doesn't have an opponent, I don't vote in that race. It's one of my things. I don't like a system that allows us to have uncontested races. So I don't vote in uncontested races ever. That's sort of my protest. That's rule number one. Rule number two, if I don't like the two main candidates, if I don't like the Democrat and the Republican, I will always pick a third-party candidate, even if I don't like that third-party candidate. And that happens frequently, where I'm not particularly fond of I don't like the Democrat, I don't like the Republican, and I don't know much about the Green Party candidate or the Conservative Party candidate or whatever. I will always vote for that third-party candidate because I know they don't have a chance of winning. And that's my protest. In the one case, my protest is not voting. In the other case, my protest is voting. I very seldom vote for Democrats or Republicans because I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I don't adhere to the ideology of either major party. So I usually will vote in the third party range for someone who I do agree with more. However, I'm not opposed to voting Democrat or Republican. You know, are you familiar with the movie Chasing Amy? Chasing Amy is a really good movie. It's part of the Clerks, Mallrats trilogy, if you will. So this girl in this movie, Amy, this is the strangest story that I'm telling you. I'm hoping you haven't seen this movie, so at least there's a point in my telling you. But in this movie, Chasing Amy, this girl, Amy, who I don't remember who the actress is, but she's a cute little blonde thing. She decides to be, she decides to be a lesbian. And then she meets this guy, Ben Affleck, I think. And she really, really likes him. And then she decides that the whole point of her becoming a lesbian was that she didn't want to pigeonhole herself into being straight. But then she met this great guy, and her mind has pigeonholed herself into being a lesbian. Trust me, this comes around to make sense. So then she goes out with Ben Affleck. I think it's Ben Affleck. Why do I feel the need to watch Chasing Amy now? It's a great movie. I haven't seen it in years. That's my take with the major party candidates. I usually vote third party because I don't want to pigeonhole myself into being one of the major party candidates. But I also don't want to pigeonhole myself into being into refusing to vote for them. So in this case, in one case today, I was straight. I decided to vote with one of the major parties because I don't have a problem with that. Presidential race, I've been talking about him for months now. Gary Johnson, that's how I voted. Because if it were a two-person race, I would have had to have gone for Obama, but it's not. And I'm glad it's not, and I'm glad that this is America and we can vote third party. And to anyone who says that I wasted my vote, if you live in New York, you're wasting your vote, period. New York is going to be blue. It's going to vote blue every day, all day, for years and years and years, and there's no point in worrying about New York State. So whether you're voting for Obama or for Romney, in the grand scheme of things, your vote doesn't count. So if your vote doesn't count, you might as well vote your conscience. My conscience says I vote Libertarian. Boom. Baya. I've actually spoken longer than I thought I would today. Here's the thing. Here's what I want you to get out of today's show. Please vote. Unless you don't know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, then please let the people who do know what they're doing make the decisions. Because there's nothing worse than an uninformed voter, in my personal opinion. So I went and voted. If you want to go and cancel out my vote, feel free to. I'm not going to be offended by how you vote. If you think that Obama is the guy, vote for Obama. If you think that Romney is the guy, vote for Romney. And if you think that neither one of them is the guy, but you don't know who to vote for, I don't know, pull one of those third-party levers. You're not going to hurt anything, I guess. But if you really have no frickin' clue, don't vote. Voting is for people who know what they're doing. It's like driving a car. Just because you're 16 years old doesn't mean that you get to drive a car. You have to learn how first. The same should be true for voting. Just because you're 18 doesn't mean you should get to vote. You need to know what the hell you're doing. And if you don't know what the hell you're doing, stay home and let somebody else drive you. Or I think I mixed metaphors there, but whatever. Doesn't matter. Long story short, we'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk about who the president is. Hopefully. I think this is going to... I think we're going to have a president. And if not, well, then that'll be fun, because honestly, there wasn't much more exciting than not knowing who the president was for like a month and a half in the year 2000. So tomorrow we'll come back, we'll have a president, and we'll have fun, and I will have eaten pizza. And I like pizza. No, that's for another day. Another day we'll talk about pizza's pizza. But for now, I'm out. Tweet me your thoughts at Scott Leffler, and I'll see you later. Thanks.